What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Feud. Today, we are talking about our Metal Mondays. I'm Stone along with Mason and Paul. And before we get into today's video, I want to say, like it, comment down below who you are going to award your medals to, and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to us. Our content is fantastic. It's exponentially better than everyone else's ideas. We never tell anyone the wrong things. I'm going to say that with a grain of salt because we definitely do sometimes. But yeah, subscribe. It would help us out a lot. We post Monday through Friday, try to live stream Saturdays, and just post all kinds of different things. So go ahead, become a part of the crew. And now we're going to get into today's video.
Hold on. I'll own up to that real quick. I did tell you guys, a lot of you guys, to sit Stephon Diggs last week, thinking that he was going to not play very well up against the elite defense of the New England Patriots, and he put up 22 fantasy points.
Yep.
We'll start the week off with that.
Yeah, and I guess since we were talking about who he said you should sit, we can talk about our fantasy zeros of the week, and we're just going to kind of brush through them because they don't really deserve the time, right? They lost us leagues. Matthew Stafford, 21 to 37, 197 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks, 6 fantasy points. Now, when I said he lost us leagues, I was lying because me and Mason co-op a league, and we're going to lose still with playing against that guy. Yeah, hard to imagine, right? Number 2, Tyler Lockett, 3 catches, 30 yards. Tyler Headache. We've been saying it all year. He doesn't get that 50-yard touchdown. He's a headache. Fantasy zero. Tyreek Hill. Seems like it's either 40 points a week for him or 3.9. And this week was the 3.9. Tyreek Hill, we don't want to talk about you. You got me eliminated in a league. I can't forgive you.
He only had 2 targets.
Yeah,
I had to double check
fault
to make sure he was healthy and make sure he didn't go out of the game. He had 2 targets against the Steelers. I don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
I'll stop you guys right there. This is a great segue into our underdogs of the week, okay? We had so many good ones. We're just going to brush through kind of some honorable mentions. So, because Tyreek only had 2 targets or 2 catches, Byron Pringle, the guy on the bottom of the totem pole, stepped up at 6 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25.5 fantasy points. That's why he made it on our underdog list, but he's not winning it. He had a great game.
What's crazy is Byron Pringle is the guy before the season started that they were saying could be the breakout receiver in Kansas City this year.
We were saying that. I was saying that. That was my guy.
Well, no, Kansas City was saying it too, though.
Yeah, they were. Moving on, number 3 on our list for this. Rex Burkhead had a heck of a game. 22 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 28.9 fantasy points. The Chargers could not stop him. I'm not even talking about the Chargers. I'm still upset about that game. Let's move on. Isaiah McKenzie, the Buffalo Bills. Okay, 11 catches, 125 yards, 1 touchdown, 29.4 fantasy points. Stephon Diggs had a touchdown. I believe Dawson Knox had a touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders had a touchdown. They all had great games. Isaiah McKenzie had an even better game.
I don't think Emmanuel had one. I think he dropped a touchdown in the end zone.
Oh, he dropped it. My bad.
I want to own up to a mistake. I might have told somebody in the comments section of our last start sit video that Isaiah McKenzie, I'm kind of scared of starting him just because we haven't seen what he's capable of this year. Yeah, I was wrong. That's where I was taking the grain of salt when I was making the intro, so I'm sorry about that, man.
Extreme
I
ownership.
did not expect that.
Take ownership of that. Way to take ownership of that. All right, moving on to the number 1 underdog of the week. I start him in my flex spot that just so happens to get double the points, which was a great move on my part this week. Justin Jackson, 11 carries, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 catches, 98 yards, 34.2 fantasy points. Ended up getting me 68 fantasy points in the league. Was amazing. He is the underdog of the week. He stepped in the place of Austin Eckler and had a heck of a game, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's go ahead and move on. So I'm going to let you take care of this.
We're going to move on to the weekend workhorses. But before we get into our top 3, we want to bring up some honorable mentions like we always do because there's not only just 3 guys that do good this every week. There's 7 guys or there's 8 guys. But number 4, just because we wanted to say the Fantasy Feud told you so 3 weeks ago, we've been saying it every single waiver wire pickup video ever since then. Amon-Ra St. Brown, baby. 9 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. He had 2 carries for 19 yards as well. 26 fantasy points. Amon-Ra is for real, guys, and we have been telling you that for a while now. If he's still not rostered in leagues, I don't even know what to say at this point. We're not making a waiver target video, so this is the waiver target video. Pick up Amon-Ra in your championship round if he's somehow still there. I don't know. We just wanted to shout him out. Number 3, Nick Chubb. 17 carries, 126 yards, touchdown, 3 catches, 58 yards, 27 fantasy points. He is back finally. He really hasn't had a performance like this in quite a while, so for fantasy owners, it was definitely a sigh of relief if you're fighting for a championship.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, I saw your hand up. That's why I stopped.
I forget exactly who it was, but I think it was a defensive back or something like that from Cleveland. Tweeted somehow during the game that the Browns need to run their offense through Nick Chubb rather than Baker Mayfield.
I mean, it's
Like
true.
it came out in the middle of a game though. Like I don't understand how that happened, but he literally criticized his team in the middle of a game and was like, "Hey, listen, go sit down, Baker Mayfield. You're trash. You're probably not going to be here. You're not getting that contract extension. Nick Chubb is the reason why this team goes. He's the power behind it, and we need to continue to do it. And this is the type of game that tells you exactly why."
Yep.
It's funny. Half the time they don't even freaking use them, but whatever. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Speaking on people that are the complete powerhouses of their offense, let's talk about Deebo Samuel with 5 carries, 32 yards, 9 catches, 159 yards. Didn't get a touchdown. Still got 28 fantasy points. That's how good this guy is. He's actually incredible. He had 190 total yards. I mean, this guy is just unstoppable. I don't have much to say about Deebo. I think if you don't know who he is, you do by now. Like, there's no way you don't know who he is at this point. One of the best receivers in the league.
So good. So good.
And then last for our honorable mentions, we got Damian Harris. 103 yards and 3 touchdowns for the New England Patriots. The only reason that the Patriots were still in this game against Buffalo the whole game. He actually played really well the whole time, and I mean every single time I looked at the TV that he was playing on, I was just like, he would just be in the end zone. So I was like, oh, okay, nice. So Damian Harris balled out for you if you're fighting for that championship. But we're going to move into our actual top 3. The honorable mentions don't get the time that these guys get. Number 3, who wants to take it?
I'll take him over. It's Joe Mixon. I was a huge proponent of him all year long. I said draft Joe Mixon. He did. It panned out. The guy has been unstoppable for most of the year. I don't want to say all year. Most of the year he's been unstoppable. 18 carries against Baltimore, 65 yards, a touchdown, 6 catches on top of that, 70 yards, 1 touchdown, 31.5 fantasy points. Just another part of the reason why the Bengals smoked the Ravens. It was a great game. If you're a Bengals fan, shout out, Dad. Anyways, moving on.
Who dey?
Who dey?
Yeah, and number 2, we got A.J. Brown. 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown, 31.5 fantasy points. Welcome back, A.J. Brown, to the NFL. The NFL missed you.
Back.
Even when he was playing before, he didn't really seem like the A.J. Brown of old. Well, he came back, and he sure looked like it in this game. A.J. Brown,
right.
I don't really have much to say other than, I mean, I guess
speaking of
probably,
teams that
I was
make
say,
their offense
people
go.
that don't expect this. Okay, whatever. Just cut me off. You take it. It's yours.
Cry about it. Now, speaking of teams that make this offense go, I mean, this offense is team dead. A.J. Brown comes back, and they were alive again in San Francisco. They had a heck of an offensive performance. Hats off to A.J. Brown for coming back. If this team makes it into the playoffs and makes a run, it's probably going to be partly due to A.J. Brown and with the return of King Henry, of course. But anyways,
I was going to say, A.J. Brown might have been... like, people didn't expect him to do this, and, like, people may not have been starting him just because his first game back from IR, and he was actually having a down year before, so maybe people were too scared to start him this week. If you were, I am just so sorry that you did that. A.J. Brown is too good to not start, though.
Yep.
Let's move on to our number 1 spot here.
It seems like this man is a walking 120 yards and 2 touchdowns a week, coming from who's probably the leading MVP candidate right now, Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams.
Cooper Kupp.
Another 10 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, 33.5 fantasy points. I mean, this is almost a consistent from him, and having him in a couple different leagues this year. Trust me when I say this is consistent for him. Like, he's just getting 2 touchdowns a game. Obviously not, but I mean, it's pretty close. Every time you turn around, like I said, it's Aaron Rodgers is a walking 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. And Devontae Adams gets a bulk of that work. So that's why he's our leading weekend workhorse. He's out there producing every single game for them.
Let's go.
Mason's hype.
That's why he was a top 6 pick for me. Everyone was taking running backs. I'm like, take Devontae Adams with the number 6 pick. For the love of God.
If he was there, it's like
I will say it was always going to be hard for him to try to replicate the season he had last year. I believe he had like 19 touchdowns or something like that. Something crazy. Obviously, he doesn't have that this year, but again, he's just been a consistent 10 targets or 10 catches, 100 yards, and almost 2 touchdowns a game. He, again, is in line with what we just talked about. He's part of the reason why that team runs so fluidly and that offense is so great when they lack a lot of the same playmakers as other great teams and other great offenses in this league.
What's
He's
crazy?
really the only receiver out there doing it.
Well, people want to say that Cooper Kupp is like, hats off to Kupp. The dude, I mean, he works just as hard as anybody else in the NFL. But, they're like, oh, he studies so much, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Devontae Adams has put in the work, and nobody ever sits there and praises him for the hard work, the studying, the game film that he watches. He gets this done because A, Aaron Rodgers, and B, he works his butt off. He deserves that number one spot. He's just, hats off, one of the best the NFL's ever seen.
Yep, and let's move on.
His
to
route running.
No, never mind. No, nobody's gonna let me talk today.
No,
no one's gonna
it's-
let me transition today.
You're not the host today.
I was just going to add on and say his route running is impeccable. I think he's the best route runner in the league. Just like I would say that DeAndre Hopkins has the best hands in the league.
Yep,
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Let's move on to the
Transition.
Gunslinger Awards now. Nobody cut me off. All right, we're good. We're on to the Gunslinger Award. We're gonna start with Josh Allen. Who wants to take Josh Allen?
Josh Allen coming in. There was no 50-degree winds playing against the Patriots this time. He went off. He showed that they can play with the Patriots. That what we talked about during our live stream. Patriots can't hang when this stuff happens. Josh, they had too much firepower. The Bills destroyed the Patriots. Not really destroyed, but they played a heck of a game. Josh Allen, 30-47, 314, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, 30.9 fantasy points, and I'm pretty sure he had some rushing yards, but I do not know what that is off the top of my head right now. He played great. That's why he is a top 3 gunslinger for us this week. All right, that's enough said right there. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2.
Coming in at number 2, Dak Prescott. And this kind of comes with the caveat of he could have had more if it wasn't such a terrible game by Washington. He was 28 of 39, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, put up 31.3 fantasy points, and he did all of this through 3 quarters. In the first, I think, 20 minutes of the game, 15 minutes of the game, they were already up 21-0. Albeit they did have a pick six that helped him do that, but they scored 2 quick touchdowns. And Dak just had this offense rolling compared to the last time that they played Washington a couple weeks ago, where he looked incompetent. He looked like a rookie quarterback. He was out there. I think he had like 2 interceptions that game, maybe even a fumble. But he also just kind of showed why Dallas is a sneaky team. And I say sneaky only because they're 10-4. I think 11-4 now. They just clinched the East. But at the same time, their offense hasn't been clicking. It's been sputtering a lot lately. But he kind of righted all the wrongs in this one, and he put up 31 fantasy points.
I wanted to say it's kind of hard for Dallas to lose when Taylor Heineke on the first play of his offensive game decides to just launch a 50-yard touchdown to Trayvon Diggs. Not a touchdown. He just forgot what team Trayvon Diggs played for.
Who will Washington replace? That's another topic, but that's just
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
All right.
I did want to say something real fast.
somebody
Trayvon Diggs has 11 interceptions this year, which is insane, and he is still graded the 90th out of 116 cornerbacks PFF. That is just ridiculously low. Yep, that's
there's no way. That's got to be an outdated list.
If you see the Sunday Night Football thing, they do the PFF grade at the bottom every single time, and that's where he was ranked.
No way.
He has allowed 900 yards this year. Yep, most in the NFL by like a long shot too.
You know what? I mean that does make sense. Like like he's a playmaker, but he has given up a lot of plays. Like
I thought it was interesting to bring up that he's been so elite and so bad at the same time. It's just like hard to like lump him in a category of if he's a great player or a bad player. That's why everyone has this argument on it. But no, this isn't about Trayvon Diggs. We're talking about the gunslingers, and we're talking about the number 1 position, and that is Joe Burrow. Joey B, 525 yards, 4 touchdowns, 38 fantasy points, 3rd most passing yards in a game in NFL history. He should have had the number 1 of all time, but they took away a touchdown from Tyler Boyd, which kind of sucked. It was like a little 40. He like avoided pressure for so long, just stepped up, just launches a touchdown to Tyler Boyd, man. Oh my goodness, Joe Burrow was just unstoppable, and he is really just starting to show what he's going to do to this league in the future. I've been saying Joey B's we're going to be one of the up-and-coming great quarterbacks. I think everybody can pretty much agree with that, but that Herbert versus Burrow conversation definitely has to be back into consideration now. It's not just Herbert anymore. People got to start bringing up Burrow and say he's the better quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, it's obviously tough, and if he hadn't got hurt last year, it'd probably be a completely different story. Burrow just crossed 4,000 yards for the first time in his career. That's amazing to do in your second season. And obviously, we all know that Justin Herbert holds the record with over, I think, 8,200 yards now, 8,300 yards for the most in his first two seasons. I think this is going to be almost like, obviously, I don't want to put it on the same wavelength as like a Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady.
I knew where you were
But
going.
I think that's the type of situation that this could be coming from
That's
the
what we'll talk
AFC for
about.
so many years. Obviously, different conferences or different divisions within the conference. But I think we're seeing right now that these two are both going to be great, great quarterbacks going forward.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep, I love it too. And I think that takes us into our regrettables of the week. It's just that were three guys that we decided to start in fantasy leagues that we regret that might have knocked us out of the playoffs in leagues. And sadly, that is going to reign true for a couple of us. Mason, do you want to start her
I
off?
can't fathom this. I fell for the trap. I've done this before, and I should know better as a football player. I looked at this matchup and I was like, hey, Chargers are playing Houston. Chargers should be a playoff team, albeit they're going into Houston. I thought the Houston would score a little bit. I thought Houston would do okay, but I really thought the Chargers would take advantage of this situation. They were in the cusp of the playoff hunt. They decided to go in there. They had 10 days to prepare. So I decided to start Chargers defense in two different leagues, one being an important fantasy playoff league. Got me -5 points, pretty much secured me an L. Horrible decision on my part. Don't have much more to say. I do not think the Chargers deserve to go to the playoffs after a loss like that. Not only am I very salty, I am. I guess I just have a lot of hate for the Chargers right now. That's all I have to say. Wah.
I'll jump into mine, but real quick, I just want to say I fell for the same trap, Mason. I started them
Yeah.
in DFS, and I also started them in another league that didn't really matter to me. But going into it, I knew that the Chargers were one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. Although I never expected Rex Burkhead to rush for 150 yards on
Yeah.
him. That's just crazy. And overall, looking at the rushing attack from Houston, I don't think many people would have expected any type of breakout games like that. So I think a lot of people kind of were in the same boat as you. It seems like a good start on paper, but like you said, it cost us.
Yeah.
Getting into my guy though, it's Tony Pollard. When you blow out a team 56 to like 10 or 14, whatever the score was, how does Tony Pollard only have 10 touches? Like to me, that's crazy. There's games where him and Zeke have both been healthy, and he's out touching Zeke. So for them to have a blowout game and for him to only get 10 touches and 7 points, thankfully it was in a league that I'm ready in the toilet bowl. I'm in the consolation bracket. I'm not in the playoffs. I wasn't fighting for much, but still at the same time, it's kind of a pride thing. It's like a lot of my running backs aren't very good. And then for me to rely on Tony Pollard most of the year as a pretty good flex candidate goes out and gets me this. So I'm over it.
Yeah, and something that I'm not completely over yet is it's not like he didn't have a terrible game, but it's Cordero Patterson. He had 8.6 fantasy points this week, completely touchdown dependent. The thing that really has been putting me off the last couple weeks, if you're a Cordero Patterson owner, is he has been completely uninvolved in the offense now for some reason. They just kind of forgot they had him. They decided Mike Davis is the guy there now who can go out there and run the ball 22 times and get you 16 yards. So they're heavily relying on that absolute non-existent talent at the running back position now. Get rid of Cordero Patterson. He did so much for us early in the season. We don't want him anymore. It's just what every single team does to the poor guy. One of the best athletes of this generation, to be honest with you, in the NFL, and it's just
He's been so
nobody
good.
knows how to utilize him. I don't get it. But it's just my regrettable
Dude.
8.6 points. The only reason I regretted it is because I didn't even tell Mason this because this is in the league that we split that we started him. I wanted to put KJ Osborne over him, but I never said it to him.
No.
But
Yeah.
KJ had 17 points, and that would have been 10 more points. And now with me and Mason down 40, it would have been nice to have at least those 10 points for Alvin Kamara to maybe get us because, Alvin Kamara is one of the guys that can actually do it. In the
And
NFL.
if I didn't text you at Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. and said, "Hey, we need to get the Titans out of our lineup," and they ended up getting us 13, and that would have
Yeah.
been very helpful as well.
So that would have been 20 points right there. And then we would have probably
man.
definitely won, but it's whatever. Fantasy football is made with mistakes, and that's what happens. But we're going to move on to the fantasy hero of the week, and who other than a guy that I played against in fantasy football in a championship league,
Let's
like championship
go.
implications. It would be T. Higgins, who had 12 catches, 194 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean,
Money.
if you had him, you won. That's how it works. 43 points, man. Dude's unstoppable. And then if you had Joe Burrow to pair with him like my dad does in a league, oh my goodness, imagine that. That's like 80 points.
And Paul.
So I just want to say thank you, Mason, because I believe it was back in like week 7 after Cincinnati played Baltimore the first time, and Joe Burrow put up like 50 points.
Yeah.
They were going into like a bye week or something, and you ended up making a trade. You sent him to me because you had Lamar, and I kind of played the ups and downs, ebbs and flows of Joe Burrow. He never really had more than 30 points, I don't think, 25 a couple times. But for a league where I have 2 wins, my team just ravaged by injuries all season long. Tough breaks here and there. I think within the last three games of the season, I had 147 or 157 and 148 put on me back-to-back weeks. I just had no shot, and my team blew up for 180 points, all because I had T. Higgins, I had Joe Burrow, and I have Joe Mixon all on that team. Obviously, I have some other players. Kyle Pitts finally worked out for
Heck
me.
of a fantasy week for you.
T. Higgins, he just absolutely killed it for me in a league where I was down 1 win, 5 losses. I ran the board. I had 7 straight wins, lost the last week, slid down to the 5th spot, made the playoffs, somehow eked out an ugly win last week, 84-76. And then facing Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams, who already put up 33, Rojo, a couple other guys. T. Higgins blew up. He carried me to 136, 126 win. And I still have 2 to play. So when you say he's a fantasy hero, for somebody who had 0 chance or thought he was going to have 0 chance of being in the playoffs or a championship in any of my leagues, T. Higgins literally carried me. Him and David Montgomery this past week, as well as Amon-Ra. He put up 26. I was not making that same mistake where I benched him last week and he had 24 points. I know I'm ranting right now, but I'm just above and beyond happy about T. Higgins, his career day, 12 catches, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't care. I know you guys are probably like, shut up, quit talking by now, but I can't. Like, for
Paul's
somebody
over
who's
the
had
top
such a
right
down
now.
fantasy season, this has just been the highlight. It's been the cherry on the top, and I'm stoked.
man.
I'm ready to
Good
play
for
for
you.
a championship.
Hey, it's an argument for another time. I'm not gonna let you guys speak on it, but I am willing to say T. Higgins is the best receiver on Cincinnati's team, and not Jamar Chase. I know
I
that might
said
get a
that
little bit
since day
there.
one. I said that since day one, and that's why I drafted T. Higgins in the 4th round.
T. Higgins has 4 out of his last 5 games over 100 yards. So if you're going into fantasy championship, start him. He has been hot. He has been red hot money. Any word that describes hot, he has been that. But we're gonna end the video there. Thank you guys for listening. If you're still here, like the video. If you enjoyed it, comment down below who some of your heroes were. If you agree with me about T. Higgins being greater than Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is great, don't get me wrong. But T. Higgins, man, that guy's got it all. He's got the length, he's got the hands, he's got the routes, he's fat. I like him a lot. But enough of that. I said it's an argument for another time. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said, our content's amazing. It's beautiful. It's perfect. If you're still here, why wouldn't you subscribe? You've watched the whole video. You enjoyed it, right? You get more of this every single day. So why not come and subscribe and listen to the boys, right? Mason, you know it. You know what I'm gonna say.
I know what to do. Let's go. Fantasy Few out, baby. Come on, come back. Let's